Lisa, it's Matt Doran from the Sunday night program. How are you?
Hi, sir. How are you?
She's doing quite well, and she's participating in her defense. She's able to read reports.
Until then, Lisa will be held at this women's prison here in Arizona.
The couple are back in court in February. The trial is not expected to start until July 2020. Lisa and Jermaine have both been charged with 10 counts of child abuse, 1 count of first-degree murder, which...
I'm not going to bet my client's life.
So you're saying that this was a mistake?
That's correct.
There was no murder. There was no homicide.
Very hard time because I couldn't be there for him like a mom should be there.
That a mother, as one of the legal team described it, dancing on the grave.
Puts the knife back in and then picks up another knife out of her kitchen and commits these horrible crimes.
And I recall how shocked I was at the sight of that. And I wasn't the only one who was shocked.
Housewife has been found guilty of...
I thought that if I went in there and told him that I did every single thing that happened up there, that to Daryl...
Living with taxpayers' money, paying for her to live in jail to get an education.
It is therefore ordered that... Through absolute hell. And I can't imagine anybody going through that. And I can't imagine...
Take full responsibility for this anymore.
Caught in a web of tragedy and accusations, the woman dubbed the ugliest woman on death row pleads for forgiveness. Uncover the heart-wrenching story of Lisa Cunningham's fight for redemption. Background of the case. The case revolves around Lisa Cunningham, a 48-year-old Australian woman who, along with her husband Jermaine, is facing serious charges in Arizona, United States. The charges stem from the tragic demise of her stepdaughter, 6-year-old Sana, which occurred in 2017. Both Cunningham and her husband have been in custody since their arrest in connection with the incident. The charges against the couple are notably severe. They include 1 count of first-degree slaying, a charge that carries grave legal consequences. Additionally, they face multiple counts of child misuse. It's essential to note that both Cunningham and her husband have pleaded not guilty to these charges, indicating their assertion of their innocence. The gravity of the situation is further amplified by the prospect of the demise penalty looming over the case. Prosecutors have made it clear that if the couple is found guilty, they intend to seek capital punishment as the appropriate sentence.
Appearing in their orange prison uniforms for it, we learned that her defense lawyers have been granted access to 2...
She's doing quite well, and she's participating in her defense. She's able to read reports.
This is a significant point of contention, especially considering Australia's strong opposition to the demise penalty. For Lisa Cunningham, who hails from Adelaide and has spent most of her life there, this legal ordeal is undoubtedly a deeply distressing and surreal experience. She expressed her shock and devastation during an interview with 7 Sunday Night in 2018, reflecting the emotional toll this case has taken on her and her family. Since her arrest, Cunningham has been awaiting her day in court, hoping for a fair and just legal process. The case not only carries immense personal stakes for her and her husband, but also touches on broader issues surrounding the justice system, the appropriateness of penalties, and the international legal implications of the demise penalty. As the legal proceedings unfold, the case of Lisa Cunningham serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities and challenges inherent in the pursuit of justice, particularly when it involves cross-border legal systems and differing approaches to criminal penalties. Lisa's heartbreaking early life. The story of Lisa Cunningham's life, an Australian woman who is a mother of 4 and is currently facing the demise penalty in the United States, is one that is defined by anguish, struggle, and sorrow. Lisa Topsfield was born in Adelaide in 1974 to parents Cheryl and Ian Roger Topsfield. When Lisa was 4 years old, her family moved to the town of Mannum, which is located 84 kilometers away from Adelaide. This marked the beginning of a difficult period in Lisa's life. Her childhood was marked by turbulent relationships between her parents, which was characterized by her father's drinking and her mother's struggle with mental illness. These factors had a significant impact on her development. Lisa's upbringing was made even more unsettled by the fact that she had to move around a lot as a youngster because of the instability in her childhood. In the early years following the divorce of her parents in the 1980s, Lisa continued to live with her mother and her brothers. On the other hand, she eventually moved back to Manham to be with her father when she was just 14 years old. The family was rocked by tragedy when Lisa's brother Jamie, who was only 22 years old at the time, passed away as a result of a tragic drug overdose. Lisa encountered further difficulties in the field of interpersonal connections. Her father's rejection of her decision to marry her first husband, who she met in Queensland, resulted in a time of estrangement between the two of them. Despite this, Lisa eventually tied the knot, and after their honeymoon, they traveled the world together. Despite the fact that the relationship was successful in producing 2 offsprings, the marriage did not last. The idea that Lisa and her children should move back to Australia was shot down, which forced her to continue living in the United States. Even after Lisa's mother, Mrs. Topfield, died away in 2010, Lisa continued to suffer from the loss of her mother. After another year had passed, Lisa finally tied the knot with Jermaine Cunningham in the year 2011. They had their own children while also raising Jermaine's children from a previous relationship.
Until then, Lisa will be held at this women's prison here in Arizona.
Actually, the prosecution is blaming the abuse of Sanaa by the Cunninghams for her death.
And this resulted in the formation of a blended family. Sana, the little girl whose awful destiny has now become the focal point of an agonizing court struggle, was one of those who were slayed. The prosecution contends that Sana was exposed to unfathomable brutality at the hands of Cunninghams. They are accused of confining Sana with plastic ties, thereby fashioning a makeshift straitjacket and shackles for her to wear. They allegedly made her wear diapers against her will and confined her to a laundry room or the outside of the building. The accusations also state that she was forced to handle dog excrement with her bare hands and that a festering sore on her foot was untreated, all of which are stated to have been ignored by her captors. In light of these extremely disturbing charges, Lisa Cunningham's account is one that takes a number of twists and turns that are quite difficult to stomach. Her formative years were blighted by strife within her family, problematic substance use, and the loss of a cherished sister. However, in her quest to find love in a family, she ended up getting herself entangled in a predicament that now poses serious risk to the rest of her life. The crime. The tragic events leading up to Sana Cunningham's untimely passing on that fateful February morning paint a distressing picture of a family in crisis. The initial signs of trouble emerged when Lisa Cunningham discovered her stepdaughter in a gravely weakened state, unable to rouse herself from her playpen. The distressing scene prompted an immediate call to Sana's doctor, who had previously prescribed a potent antipsychotic medication. The doctor's advice was to monitor the situation and schedule an appointment for the upcoming Monday, a response that now, in hindsight, echoes with tragic inadequacy. As the hours passed, an alarming deterioration in Sana's condition unfolded. Her responsiveness dwindled until she reached a state of near catatonia.
The couple are back in court in February. The trial is not expected to start until July 2020.
Lisa, it's Matt Doran from the Sunday night program. How are you?
Hi, sir. How are you?
In an act of desperate maternal instinct, Lisa Cunningham surrounded Sana with warm water bottles, a poignant testament to a stepmother's love and determination to soothe her suffering stepdaughter. The race against time began in earnest as they rushed Sana to urgent care in the early hours of that fateful Sunday. Despite their frantic efforts, tragedy struck and Sana succumbed to her afflictions. The subsequent autopsy, while shedding light on the extent of Sana's injuries, did little to assuage the deepening suspicions surrounding her passing. The scratches and wounds that marked her body were attributed to the effects of her schizophrenia, a haunting testament to the relentless inner turmoil she endured. The coroner identified sepsis, a blood infection, and pneumonia, a known side effect of the prescribed medication, as the likely causes of her passing. While these medical findings offered a clinical explanation, they failed to quell the rising questions about the circumstances leading up to Sana's demise. An investigation delved deeper. The veneer of normalcy surrounding the Cunningham household began to crack, revealing a chilling narrative of alleged misuse and neglect spanning 2 harrowing years. The prosecution's account, outlined in detail, paints a devastating portrait of a young girl ensnared in a nightmarish reality. The allegations of misuse, corroborated by accounts from concerned neighbors, cast a shadow of suspicion over the family's dynamics and the level of care afforded to Sana. Uncomfortable questions arise, probing the very heart of this heart-wrenching saga.
The first Australian woman to face the death penalty here in the United States.
Lisa and Jermaine have both been charged with 10 counts of child abuse, 1 count of first-degree murder, which...
Did financial and emotional strains become insurmountable burdens, pushing the family to an unthinkable breaking point? Was there a moment when the weight of their responsibilities eclipsed their capacity to cope, leading them down to a tragic path? These unsettling inquiries confront us with the profound complexities of familial bonds, mental health struggles, and the responsibilities that came with caring for vulnerable loved ones. The story of Sana Cunningham serves as a blunt reminder of the critical importance of safeguarding the well-being of those who cannot protect themselves. It is a call to action for heightened vigilance, advocacy, and support for individuals grappling with mental health challenges, particularly children who find themselves in vulnerable situations. This heartbreaking tale underscores the urgency of creating a society where no child, no matter their circumstances, is left to suffer in silence. Sana's demise. The tragic case of Sana Cunningham, Jermaine's biological daughter, unfolds against a backdrop of profound distress and heartbreak. Sana's life was cut short in February 2017, leaving her family grappling with grief and unanswered questions. In the months leading up to her untimely passing, Sana's family observed disconcerting shifts in her behavior. What was once a vibrant and typical 6-year-old transformed into a child struggling with basic tasks.
First Australian woman in US history to be facing the death penalty. I mean...
I'm not going to bet my client's life.
So you're saying that this was a mistake?
That's correct.
Simple actions like turning a doorknob or opening a water bottle suddenly eluded her. These changes were deeply concerning and baffling to her loved ones. By July 2016, a diagnosis of acute schizophrenia shed light on the underlying issues plaguing Sana. Her parents, including Lisa Cunningham, were confronted with the harsh reality that their young daughter was battling a severe mental health condition. Sana's struggles manifested in alarming ways. She would tear at her skin and grapple with distressing auditory hallucinations, urging her towards violence. The situation escalated as she began to exhibit distressing behavior, such as urinating and defecating within the family home, and even self-inflicting harm on her eyes. Child safety authorities intervened, visiting the Cunningham residence on 2 occasions. Lisa Cunningham maintains that they were not only aware of Sana's deteriorating condition, but also witnessed it firsthand. The family was trapped in a painful and desperate situation, watching their beloved daughter's health rapidly decline. Throughout the latter half of 2016, Sana's condition worsened, becoming a source of increasing alarm for her family. They were vocal about their concerns, advocating for her well-being.
There was no murder, there was no homicide. She died from pneumonia.
Miscarriage of justice that I have experienced in my practice. Lisa's not a criminal.
3 hours a day and ordered to have no contact with any of her children.
However, the solutions presented to them were far from satisfactory. They were given medications to sedate Sana, which, while providing some relief, came with its own set of challenges. Lisa Cunningham vividly remembers the frustration and anguish of being handed a bottle of pills and instructed to administer them to her 6-year-old, effectively rendering her unconscious for most of the day. It was an untenable situation, and the family pleas for more effective assistance went unanswered. In recounting the painful journey, Lisa Cunningham's narrative underscores a profound sense of helplessness and the deep-seated frustration at not being able to access the necessary support and intervention for Sana. The heartbreaking reality is that, despite the best efforts and impassioned pleas, the family found themselves navigating a complex system that seemed ill-equipped to provide the levels of care and intervention that their daughters so desperately needed. The tragic outcome of this struggle serves as a poignant reminder of the critical needs for robust mental health resources and support, especially for vulnerable individuals like Sana,
who's inside the maximum security wing at Estrella Women's Jail in Arizona.
If you fail to appear, the court would issue a bench warrant for your arrest. You understand?
Yes, sir.
There was no murder. There was no murder, there was no homicide. She died from pneumonia.
You are not to leave the state of Arizona without permission from the court.
Worst cases of
miscarriage of justice that I have experienced in my practice.
Investigation unfolds, a tragic timeline. As 2017 dawned, young Sana's condition showed no signs of improvement. Instead, it worsened, marked by stubborn cuts and sores that resisted all attempts at healing. Lisa Cunningham, desperate for answers, turned to psychiatrist in January of that year. The doctor prescribed an adult psychotic medication known as Risperdal. However, what they were unaware of at the time was that pneumonia was a potential side effect of this treatment. On February 10th, a sudden onset of flu-like symptoms gripped Sana, persisting for at least a day. Alarmed by her daughter's deteriorating health, Lisa Cunningham awoke on February 12 to a heart-wrenching discovery. Sana lay unconscious in her bed, prompting a frantic rush to the hospital. Tragically, despite their efforts, Sana passed away just 5 hours later. The cause of Sana's untimely demise was determined to be sepsis, a condition stemming from the poisoning of her blood. It was suspected that this grave outcome was a result of either her wounds or acute bronchitis. For Lisa Cunningham, this marked the beginning of an agonizing journey through grief and loss. In the aftermath of Sana's passing, the family was plunged into a world of despair. They grappled with the fact that their pleas for intervention had fallen on deaf ears. Lisa's lament was poignant. "We had to bury her because nobody took it seriously." She vehemently maintains that no act of malice or misuse was perpetrated within their household. Initially, authorities did not discern any foul play in Sana's tragic end. However, as the months unfolded, law enforcement scrutinized the circumstances more closely.
No contact with the defendant's other children except as may be authorized or permitted by DCS.
Lisa's not a criminal. She's a mother. She's a good mother.
But the defendant may not discuss the facts of the case outside the presence of counsel.
Lisa Cunningham is being treated as one of the state's most dangerous felons in solitary confinement.
Defendant's not to have any contact with the arresting police officers. He's not to return to the scene of the alleged crime.
She wasn't killed. She was loved just like they were.
This scrutiny led to an alarming turn of events. Lisa Cunningham and her husband were charged with the slaying of their own stepdaughter. The allegations were nothing short of horrifying, accusing the Cunninghams of neglect and misuse, even resorting to the use of zip ties and handcuffs to restrain Sana. For Sierra, Sana's older sister, the ordeal has shattered their family's foundation. She expressed incredulity at the accusation against her mother, someone who loved Sana dearly. The weight of the situation is almost incomprehensible. Of all the people on this planet to be accused of such horrendous crime against someone she loved dearly, it boggles my mind. As the legal process advances, Lisa Cunningham braces herself for a pre-trial hearing in the coming month. The Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has stepped in, providing consular assistance to the 48-year-old. However, due to privacy considerations, further details are not disclosed at this time, leaving this tragic narrative with many chapters yet to unfold. Injustice and heartbreak. Lisa Cunningham, speaking publicly for the first time from the confines of the maximum security Australia Women's Jail, claims that the true culprits in this tragic saga are the pills prescribed by doctors. According to Cunningham, these pills, specifically the adult psychotic drug Risperdal, allegedly led to Sana sleeping for up to 20 hours a day. She alleges that her daughter's condition deteriorated significantly over the course of 10 months, transitioning from a lively and normal 6-year-old into a distressed child plagued by acute schizophrenia, engaging in self-harm, and even exhibiting aggression towards the family pet. Lisa, who remains in solitary confinement, insists that Arizona authorities were all aware of Sana's declining state of health.
Anything she know you want, she would do that and then double it.
So he's now broke from showing the court and the world that he is here and will continue to show up for all of his court hearings.
She copes. That's what Lisa does. She gets around it. She finds a solution.
It was what real happiness was to all of us, just being together and being a family.
The entirety of it in this case and in his dependency case and in the medical issues dealing with his daughter's death.
Forget how to do basic tasks like turn a doorknob or open a water bottle. And we couldn't understand.
She recounts frantic pleas for medical attention and treatment for her daughter. emphasizing that the state's involvement extended into their home. However, she claims that despite their vigilance, the severity of Sana's condition was not taken seriously, leading to an unimaginable tragedy. Lisa's lawyer, Eric Kessler, adds another layer of concern, revealing that the doctor who prescribed risperidol had never actually examined Sana. This revelation raises serious questions about the medical oversight surrounding Sana's treatment. The circumstances surrounding Sana's demise are shrouded in heartbreak. Lisa recounts the desperation and anguish of watching her child deteriorate and the frustrations of being met with inaction. Her account paints a portrait of a mother who, in the face of overwhelming odds, fought relentlessly for her daughter's well-being. Tragically, Sana passed away due to a blood infection and pneumonia.
The prosecution facts allege that when Sana was not bound in the garage, she was confined here, the laundry room.
You know, it may just have become easier for yourself and Jermaine to let her go.
Casting a further shadow of sorrow over the case. Compounding the grief, Lisa's other children now find themselves in state care. When asked about the prospect of facing the demise penalty, Lisa acknowledges its inherent illogicality. The Australian government staunchly opposes the demise penalty, underscoring the gravity of the situation. Lisa's lawyer, Mr. Kessler, an experienced attorney in demise penalty cases, expresses his profound disbelief at the unfolding events, characterizing Lisa as not a criminal, but as a devoted and caring mother. He contends that Australians should be deeply troubled by the gravity of the situation.
If the court gives him any type of bond at all, he will not be able to make it.
She went from a happy, healthy, normal little girl and then just changed.
Lisa and Jermaine say she is tearing at her skin and hearing voices urging her to kill.
Please also look at the risk to Jermaine going into jail at this point when he's been complying.
For 10 months, the state of Arizona was in our house watching her decline.
He has been out and has been behaving himself and has had no issue. Has shown the court and shown the world that he continues wanting to fight.
The best thing in the world. It's the only thing I feel like, I was born to do.
As the Cunninghams await their July 2020 trial, the case has become emblematic of the complexity and emotional weight that accompanies such deeply troubling legal proceedings. The true tragedy lies not only in Sana's untimely demise, but in the unanswered questions that continue to haunt this story of heartbreak, loss, and a mother's unwavering love. The ending. The legal battle surrounding the tragic case of Sana Cunningham takes a dramatic turn as Arizona prosecutors set their sights on a verdict that could lead to the ultimate punishment: the demise penalty for both Lisa and Jermaine Cunningham. This decision, while not taken lightly, reflects the prosecution's confidence in the strength of their case. If this unprecedented outcome comes to pass, Lisa Cunningham would carve her name into history as the first Australian woman to face the prospect of ending in the United States. The looming specter of this grim possibility casts a pall over the otherwise arid landscape of Florence State Prison, ominously referred to as Demise Town. Within its confines, 14 lethal injections have been administered since 2010, making it as a solemn site where the ultimate sentences are carried out.
Sana would urinate and defecate on the floor. She would do it in her bedroom.
He has no passport, nor can go to Australia. There's no issues there. If he did, he would offer up his passport today.
She would scratch at herself. She would cut herself. She would scratch at her own eyes.
And they asked, could she come over here and clean up big dog poop because it wasn't enough punishment for her to pick up the little dog poop. And
also the co-defendant and his wife in this case is a citizen of Australia and not this country, I believe.
Presently, 123 inmates languish in the final throes of their existence on Demise Row, awaiting the inevitable end. Of these condemned individuals, only 3 are women, a stark testament to the rarity of their inclusion in this grim fraternity. Sunday night's extraordinary access takes us inside the prison gates, leading us to the heart of this foreboding institution, housing Unit 9, colloquially known as the Demise Chamber. The memory of the last ending in Arizona still looms large, casting a shadow of doubt over the state's ability to carry out this ultimate penalty with precision and humanity. The ending of Joseph Wood, a convicted slayer, in 2014 descended into a macabre spectacle. stretching nearly 2 agonizing hours when it should have been a brief and clinical procedure lasting mere minutes. Instead of the anticipated single injection, Wood endured a staggering 15 injections, an excruciating ordeal that horrified onlookers in the viewing gallery. Witnesses reported the harrowing sounds of Wood's gasps and labored breaths, a grim reminder of the inherent complexities and ethical dilemmas entangled with the practice of capital punishment.
Her quality of life is changing, her behavior is changing, her personality is changing.
Sanaa began to have additional physical problems. She became zombie-like.
We had to bury her because nobody took it seriously.
Daughter's tragic death on February 12th. During that time, Mr. Cunningham worked with the police and DCS.
Symptoms of Risperdal, we killed her. It makes no sense. Nobody was murdered here.
In the face of these haunting experiences, Maricopa County lawyer Bill Montgomery remains resolute and unapologetic. When confronted with the questions of whether Arizona's demise penalty system is in need of reform, Montgomery boldly suggests the revival of the firing squad, a proposition that underscores the stark realities of the ongoing debate surrounding the ethics and efficacy of capital punishment. The potential outcome of this trial weighs heavily on all involved, underscoring the gravity of the charges faced by Lisa and Jermaine Cunningham. The demise penalty, with its irreversible finality, represents the most severe sentence that can be imposed by the justice system. As the legal proceedings unfold, the eyes of the world turn to Arizona, awaiting the verdict that will determine the fate of those involved and shape the course of legal history in the United States. In this crucible of justice, the profound complexities and moral implications of the demise penalty converge, leaving an indelible mark on all who bear witness to this historic trial.
In medical facility where she examined all day, but instead, she was left to defecate on herself.
Throughout this entire investigation, at some point, DCS also took his children in March.
There is something else you could have done to save this child's life.
Raking rocks and picking up dog feces with her bare hands, wearing only a diaper.
Currently does not have any money, hence why he has the public defender's office representing him.
The inmate from breathing, and the inmate essentially suffocates.
But Lisa has a fear worse than death. Never again being able to see her children.
The verdict, looming over the tragic case of 7-year-old Sanaa Cunningham, is shrouded in uncertainty, with public evidence offering little definitive insight into the exact circumstances of her untimely demise. While the prosecution hints at the existence of potentially damning text messages exchanged between Lisa and Jermaine Cunningham, the defense vehemently contests their validity, asserting that the investigation is fundamentally flawed. They point out a significant oversight in the police report, the failure to accurately record Sanaa's time of demise, further muddling the already complex narrative.
We learned that her defense lawyers have been granted access to 2 key pieces of evidence.
This is absolutely not something that DCS missed, leading to a death.
One more detail from the autopsy of 7-year-old Sanaa, who died in February.
What remains unequivocal, however, is that a grave failure occurred in Sanaa's case. Amidst the legal wrangling and finger-pointing bound to transpire in court, this sobering reality must not be lost. The tragedy raises a host of troubling questions in an age where medical knowledge and resources are more advanced than ever. How could a child succumb to a preventable blood infection and pneumonia? Why was Sanaa prescribed a potent adult psychotic? And was this decision based on a thorough evaluation of her condition? Lisa's legal team contends that no such evaluation was conducted, potentially warranting the removal of the prescribing doctor from the medical registry, and even potential charges. The medical community also faces scrutiny for their handling of Sanaa's acute schizophrenia. Were adequate measures taken to address her condition? Could more have been done by Lisa and Jermaine to secure specialized care for their daughter?
There's 2 people's names on that indictment, and it's nobody from our organization.
Unless she can somehow convince the courts that she's innocent.
Real happiness was to all of us, just being together and being a family.
If Sanaa's illness was as severe as claimed, she should have been entrusted to the care of professionals better equipped to manage her condition. The timeline of events raises further eyebrows. with many questioning why charges were not brought sooner. Some suspects preferential treatment for Jermaine, a former police officer in Phoenix. Others speculate whether this case is tainted by a cover-up orchestrated by law enforcement, prosecutors, and child services to shield themselves from their own shortcomings. Supporters of the Cunninghams vehemently assert that the state's slaying theory rests on shaky ground and is poised for a rapid collapse in court. Conversely, opponents argue that Sana's parents are precisely where they belong and must state the gravest of consequences.
10-year-old Goodyear girl is dead. Investigators say it was child abuse, and her dad, a former cop, is now charged with murder.
Good morning, Eddie. It was a chance for the judge to check on the progress of the defense and prosecution.
Sinead Cunningham died back in February, but her parents are just now being indicted.
In the midst of this legal maelstrom, I asked Lisa about the realistic prospects of facing the demise penalty. Her response reflects a blend of resignation and acknowledgement of the capricious nature of justice. She characterizes the notion as inherently illogical, yet acknowledges that the course of events in the realm of justice can often defy reason. As the trial unfolds, the specter of capital punishment casts a long and foreboding shadow over the proceedings. The tragic narrative of Sana Cunningham serves as a stark reminder of the profound complexities and ethical dilemmas entangled with the pursuit of justice. The answers sought in the courtroom will not only determine the fate of those involved, but will also shape the course of legal history, leaving an indelible mark on all who bear witness to this solemn chapter in the pursuit of truth and justice. Demise penalty debate. Australia stands on Lisa's fateful fate. The case of Lisa Cunningham, an Australian mother facing the demise penalty in the United States, has ignited a fervent debate surrounding the ethical and moral implications of capital punishment. Australia, staunchly opposed to the demise penalty, finds itself at the forefront of this contentious discussion. Number 1. Australia's abolitionist stance. Australia abolished capital punishment in 1967, firmly asserting its commitment to the sanctity of human life and the belief in the possibility of rehabilitation. This abolitionist stance reflects a broader international trend towards the gradual elimination of the demise penalty. Number 2. Diplomatic opposition. The Australian government, in line with its anti-demise penalty stance, has consistently advocated for the abolition of capital punishment on the global stage. In cases where Australian citizens face the demise penalty overseas, diplomatic efforts are mobilized to seek clemency and ensure that their rights are upheld. Number 3. Ethical considerations. Opponents of the demise penalty argue that it violates the inherent right to life, constituting a form of cruel and inhumane punishment. They contend that the irreversible nature of capital punishment precludes the possibility of rectifying miscarriages of justice, thus rendering it fundamentally flawed. Number 4. Diverging legal systems. The United States, where Lisa Cunningham's case unfolds, maintains the demise penalty as a legal recourse in certain states. This fundamental difference in legal systems and philosophies of justice underscores the complexity of the case, prompting scrutiny of the compatibility of Australia's stance with that of its ally. Number 5. Humanitarian concerns. Many Australians, including advocacy groups and citizens, voice deep concern over the potential imposition of the demise penalty on Lisa Cunningham. They argue that her case exemplifies the critical need for international cooperation and advocating for a fair legal process.
The first Australian woman in US history to be facing the death penalty.
Jermaine and Lisa Cunningham are now both facing 11 counts of child abuse, which is a Class 4 felony.
How is that sitting with you? Does it even feel real?
As the debate surrounding Lisa Cunningham's fate continues, Australia's unwavering opposition to the demise penalty remains a cornerstone of its human rights advocacy. The case serves as a poignant reminder of the profound ethical considerations at stake when grappling with matters of life and demise in the realm of justice. Voices of support. Amidst the unfolding legal saga of Lisa Cunningham, a growing chorus of voices is fervently advocating for her cause. These supporters, spanning from devoted family members to impassioned activists, firmly believe in Lisa's innocence and are determined to shed light on the complexities surrounding her situation. At the forefront of Lisa's advocacy are her immediate family members, who stand unwaveringly by her side. Her daughter, Sierra Anderson, has emerged as a powerful advocate.
Solitary confinement 23 hours a day and ordered to have no contact with any of her children.
She wasn't killed. She was loved just like they were.
She could become the first Australian woman in US history to be executed.
Passionately asserting that Lisa's love for Sana was genuine and that the accusations against her represent a grave miscarriage of justice. Sierra's resolute support is emblematic of the deep-seated bonds within the Cunningham family, transcending the legal proceedings. The backbone of Lisa's fight for justice lies in her legal defense team, comprising seasoned attorneys with expertise in cases of this nature. They are committed to uncovering the truth behind the allegations. Their tireless efforts involve rigorous examination of evidence, thorough investigations, and skilled advocacy within the courtroom. Their collective expertise ensures that Lisa's case is presented comprehensively and competently. A groundswell of activists, group, and advocacy organizations have taken up Lisa's cause, viewing it as a potential watershed moment in the pursuit of justice. These groups labor relentlessly to raise awareness about Lisa's plight, mobilizing public support through dynamic social media campaigns, petitions, and public demonstrations. Their combined voice amplifies the call for a thorough and impartial examination of the evidence.
Defence wants their own pathology expert to look into it to determine their own cause of death.
An Adelaide mother facing the death penalty in the US has appeared briefly in court this morning.
Obviously, the prosecution is blaming the abuse of Sana by the Cunninghams for her death.
Internationally renowned human rights organizations have also expressed deep concern over Lisa's case. They emphasize the critical need for transparency and impartiality within the legal process, highlighting the far-reaching consequences of a potential miscarriage of justice. Leveraging their extensive global networks, these organizations bring Lisa's situation to the forefront, advocating for a meticulous review of the evidence. Lisa's narrative has struck a chord with a broader audience of concerned citizens, united by a shared belief in the integrity of a fair legal system.
There was no murder, there was no homicide. She died from pneumonia.
So you're saying that this was a mistake?
That's correct.
Worst cases of miscarriage of justice that I have experienced in my practice.
Through various platforms such as social media, blogs, and local community events, these individuals work tirelessly to disseminate information about Lisa's case. Their collective advocacy serves as a rallying cry for a thorough and unbiased evaluation of the evidence. While the Australian government is limited in its ability to directly intervene in the legal proceedings of another nation, it has extended consular assistance to Lisa Cunningham. This gesture underscores a diplomatic acknowledgement of her case, ensuring that her rights as an Australian citizen are upheld throughout the legal process. Legal experts and commentators, both in Australia and the United States, have provided valuable insights into the nuances of Lisa's case. Some offer critical analysis of the evidence at hand, while others underscore the fundamental importance of due process in cases of such gravity. Their contributions contribute to a more comprehensive understanding of the legal complexities involved. As the legal battle unfolds, the united voices rallying behind Lisa Cunningham's cause serve as a poignant reminder of the significance of a fair and just legal system. Their collective advocacy endeavors to ensure the truth prevails and that justice is served for all parties involved. A mother's unending nightmare. Lisa Cunningham's harrowing journey through the American justice system is a heart-wrenching tale of a mother facing a fate more devastating than demise itself, the potential of never seeing her children again. Her story encapsulates the deepest form of loss, where a mother's desperate search for answers has thrust her into a maelstrom of grave accusations.
Lisa's not a criminal. She's a mother. She's a good mother.
Something in the room stinks. And the fingers are all pointing in a particular direction.
Did you do anything wrong?
Absolutely not.
In this crucible of anguish, profound questions emerge about the essence of justice and the staggering toll it exacts on a grieving family. Lisa's anguish was compounded by an overwhelming sense of powerlessness. As she witnessed her beloved child's agonizing decline, she embarked on a relentless quest for assistance and understanding. Together with her parents, Lisa committed herself to shielding Sana from the perils of her affliction. However, Their fervent efforts seemed to dissolve into the void of a medical system that sought to manage symptoms rather than unearth the underlying cause. In a poignant letter addressed to her cousin Donna Rosler, Lisa bares her soul with a rawness that echoes despair and disbelief. She paints a vivid picture of her current reality, an unending nightmare that starkly contrasts with the turbulent tapestry of her upbringing. Lisa's words resonate with the haunting echoes of sacrifice, heartbreak, and an unwavering pursuit of redemption.
My mom and Jermaine really had done was they just took two halves of broken families.
And she tried so hard to keep things going for the sake of the children.
They made a completely new, better one.
As Lisa grapples with the judicial process, the very real threat of never reuniting with her children looms large. Her story is emblematic of a mother's unyielding love, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness of times. In the crucible of tragedy, Lisa's resilience shines through, underscoring the enduring strength of a mother's bond with her children. The haunting question that lingers is whether justice, in its pursuit, risks sacrificing not only the accused, but also the shattered remnants of a once thriving family. On June 6, 1996, a quiet suburban neighborhood in Rowlett, Texas, was shattered by a horrifying tragic incident that would come to be known as the Darlie Routier case. In the early hours of that fateful morning, Darlie Routier, a 26-year-old mother of three, made a frantic 911 call that would set in motion a chain of events that continues to captivate and divide public opinion to this day. The Routier residence, located at 5801 Eagle Drive, was the scene of this harrowing crime. Darlie's husband, Darren, was away at the time, leaving her home with their three children. Two of them, Damon and Devin, aged 5 and 6, would tragically lose their lives that night. The third, 7-month-old Drake, was unharmed and asleep upstairs with his father. At 2:31 a.m., the 911 dispatcher received a call from Darlie Routier. Her voice filled with panic and desperation. She urgently reported a break-in and a knifing in her own home. The urgency in her voice was palpable as she described a horrifying scene that unfolded in their family residence. Police responded promptly, arriving at the Routier home with just 3 minutes of receiving the distressing 911 call. What they encountered was a gruesome and chaotic scene. The window screen in the garage had been cut, suggesting a possible point of entry for the intruder, lending credence to Darlie's claims. Upon entering the house, the officers discovered a horrifying tableau. The two young boys, Damon and Devin, had been viciously attacked and lay seriously injured. Tragically, Devin was already deceased when the officers arrived, while Damon's life hung in the balance. Paramedics were quickly summoned to provide urgent medical attention, but Damon would later succumb to his injuries during the ambulance ride to the hospital. In the midst of this gruesome scene, Darlie Routier herself had not escaped harm. She sustained significant injuries, including bruises and deep cuts to her throat and right arm. Her wounds were described as severe, with a cut to her throat coming perilously close to her carotid artery.
Darlie was viewed by those who knew her as a very doting mother, always maintained that there was a man in the house that night.
Darlie says that strange man.
Tell me that Devin is hurt. Devin. I mean, she just, the look on her face is just, we're getting close to catching who did this.
At approximately 10:20 p.m. this evening, investigators from the Rowlett Police.
This was a very odd comment that Darlie made on the 911 tape regarding fingerprints.
She's got two children dying in front of her. Boy, that thing that comes to her mind is fingerprints.
Common sense.
It clicked in my head, you know. Oh my gosh, I've just touched.
But the prosecution and defense see them very differently.
The tragic events of that night had shaken the Routier family to its core. In the days following the slayings, the family held a poignant memorial service for Devin and Damon, marked by heart-wrenching grief and sorrow. Yet, it was a seemingly contradictory event that would soon cast a shadow of suspicion over Darlie Routier and become one of the most debated aspects of the case. Just 8 days after the slayings, news cameras captured a different scene at the boys' gravesite. Darlie Routier and other family members were seen in a video celebrating what would have been Devon's 7th birthday. They laughed, sprayed silly strings on the graves, and sang happy birthday in a manner that seemed at odds with the gravity of the recent loss. This video would become a focal point of controversy during the trial, with the prosecution arguing that it demonstrated Darlie's lack of genuine grief and emotional detachment from the tragedy. In contrast, the defense contended that the video was taken out of context and did not reflect the family's true feelings of mourning. The tragic incident of June 6, 1996, marked the beginning of a complex and divisive legal saga that would continue to captivate the public imagination for years to come. It raised disturbing questions about the events of that night, the credibility of eyewitness testimony, and the role of forensic evidence in determining the truth. The Darlie Routier case is one of those rare criminal cases that continues to elicit passionate debates, with some firmly convinced of her guilt and others equally convinced of her innocence. Regardless of one's stance on the matter, the heart-wrenching tragedy of that night in Rowlett, Texas, remains a haunting and unresolved chapter in the annals of American criminal justice. Darlie Routier's account. Darlie Routier's account of the horrific events that transpired on the night of June 6, 1996, formed the initial narrative of the crime, one that would later come under intense scrutiny and become a central focus of the ensuing legal proceedings. In her frantic 911 call and subsequent statements to law enforcement, Darlie detailed a chilling tale of an intruder breaking into her home and launching a brutal attack on her and her children, all while she lay sleeping on the living room couch. According to Darlie's harrowing account, she had fallen asleep on the couch while watching television with her 2 young sons, Damon and Devin. In the early hours of the morning, she was suddenly awakened by a nightmare turned reality. An unknown assailant had invaded their home. This intruder, described as a white male, approximately 6 feet tall, had entered their lives with violence and terror. Darlie claimed that she confronted this intruder. A frenzied struggle ensued. In the midst of this terrifying altercation, the assailant allegedly brandished a knife and launched a savage attack on her children, Damon and Devin.
We're coming up with all these conclusions about what happened inside the house. And then one cop found a...
She had done this crime. Why wouldn't she just throw it in the backyard or at the end of the driveway? Where it could...
Hours before it was announced that there was a verdict. So everyone came rushing back to the court.
Out now that couldn't be done back then.
A crucial piece of evidence in this case is the bloody...
We should note there's still no execution date set for Routier because of additional court-granted DNA testing.
One of the most perplexing elements of Darlie's account was the timing and sequence of events. The authorities questioned how she could have slept through the initial attack on her children, especially considering the brutality of the attack. Moreover, her decision to chase after the assailant, leaving her wounded and dying children behind, raised troubling questions about her actions and priorities in the midst of such a dire situation. Law enforcement officials also noted inconsistencies at the crime scene that seemed incongruous with Darlie's narrative. The lack of blood drops in the garage, where the intruder was said to have made his escape, and the pristine condition of the garage window screens raised suspicions about the accuracy of her account. In the subsequent trial, the prosecution would seize upon these inconsistencies, arguing that Darlie's version of events did not align with the physical evidence and forensic analysis. Her actions, they contended, were at odds with those of a grieving mother and more in line with someone attempting to stage a crime scene. Ultimately, Darlie Routier's account of the tragic events that unfolded in her home that night would become a central point of contention in a case that continues to divide opinion and raise perplexing questions about the true nature of the crime. Her narrative was seen as a tale of maternal heroism, would come under intense scrutiny and play a pivotal role in the legal proceedings that followed.
Open and honest about everything in their past because they wanted help to find who had killed Devin and Damon.
The mother till 20, 30 minutes in when I told him, I said, something's wrong with this scene.
Loud as any person you've ever heard. I ran down the stairs and
the yellow tape was going up and There were police officers running in and out of the house.
And makes all these little, we stayed up all night one night before Easter making these little bitty Easter eggs with
him in the kitchen. So you see, now we have a progression to the fact that she woke up and she saw a man walking away from her.
You have an absolute maximum of human devastation and loss of life, these two young children, and you have an
It just repulsed me as a parent, I have to tell you that.
Forensic evidence. The forensic evidence in the Darlie Routier case played a crucial role in shaping the narrative of the crime and the subsequent legal proceedings. It provided a window into the events of that tragic night and became a key focus of both the prosecutions and the defense. The examination of these evidence yielded troubling inconsistencies that further fueled the controversy surrounding the case. The slaying weapon, a knife from Darlie Routier's own kitchen, was a central piece of forensic evidence. Its discovery within the crime scene raised perplexing questions about the nature of the attack. How had the assailant gained access to the kitchen knife within the Routier residence? This fact alone seemed to cast doubt on Darlie's account of an intruder breaking in. Blood spatter analysis, another critical component of the forensic investigation, revealed unsettling disparities. The patterns of blood distribution within the home did not align with Darlie's description of the events. Specifically, the blood spatter pattern suggested that the attack had occurred differently from how she had portrayed it. Instead of a frenzied struggle in the living room, as she had claimed, the patterns indicated that the attack was more contained, possibly within the confines of the kitchen. The most damning forensic evidence, perhaps, was the examination of fingerprints and DNA. The analysis of the blood found at the crime scene did not corroborate Darlie's accounts of an unknown intruder. Instead, it pointed towards a different narrative. DNA tests conducted on the slaying weapon, the kitchen knife, revealed that it bore the genetic material of both Darlie and her sons, Damon and Devin.
Long time.
I'm about as close to it as any other person on earth. And I can tell
when someone that you've become close to actually goes to the death
It's horrible. It's horrible because
what happened at the trial and what errors occurred, if any, at the trial. One of the main problems is someone took a butcher knife and cut their neck with the left hand when you're right-handed and did that to them.
But from what I understand, it seems a knife was taken from the knife block in the house.
Flying in the air. And that if that knife was the one that used it, it would have multiple. They made comments from the beginning of her breast implants and her. To me, it's outrageous. It's the idea you can look at somebody.
This revelation raised serious doubts about the veracity of Darlie's account. How could her DNA be present on the slaying weapon if she had been engaged in a life or demise struggle with an intruder? It seemed to suggest that she had come in contact with the weapon during the course of the attack, rather than a struggle over its possession. Additionally, fingerprint analysis introduced further complexity to the case. A fingerprint found on the windowsill in the garage, the supposed point of entry for the intruder, was determined not to belong to anyone within the Routier family. This discovery initially seemed to support Darlie's claims of an intruder, as it indicated that an unknown person had been at the scene. However, the defense would later raise doubts about the origins of the fingerprint. Fingerprint expert Pat Wertheim testified that he could not definitely rule out Darlie Routier's right ring finger as the source of the point. This testimony added another layer of ambiguity to the forensic evidence and became a point of contention during the trial. In summary, the forensic evidence in the Darlie Routier case presented a complex and contradictory narrative. The slaying weapon, blood spatter patterns, and DNA analysis all raised questions about the accuracy of Darlie's accounts. While some aspects of the evidence seemed to align with her claims, others cast doubt on the presence of an intruder and suggested a different sequence of events. This forensic puzzle would become a central point of contention during the trial, with both the prosecution and the defense presenting their interpretations of the evidence to the court. Ultimately, the forensic evidence added layers of complexity to a case that continues to defy easy resolution and remains the subject of intense debate.
Because when I got involved in this case, the very last thing that I expected was to find a mother
Yes, I believe so.
Can you describe
my neck
describe the attack?
My neck was cut.
Darren did come back from across the street, and I told him to try to help the other boy.
It was a day like any other day, you know. I had up. Damon followed behind me.
Because TV was on.
The TV was on. We had a big screen TV behind us.
Things her way, who is unhappy with her state of affairs, who's having financial problems, having...
I really wasn't concerned about her boys because she asked me about her jewelry that was sitting on the counter.
He was more quieter, but he loved to play with all the other kids to prove my innocence. It's not going to just prove that I did not.
The trial. The trial of Darlie Routier, which commenced in January 1997, marked a pivotal moment in the unfolding tragedy that had crippled Rowlett, Texas, and captured the nation's attention. It was a trial that would seek to unravel the mysteries of that fateful night in June 1996 and determine the culpability of a mother accused of the unthinkable. The prosecution's case hinged on a theory that painted Darlie Routier as the perpetrator of a heinous crime, driven by dire financial difficulties. They argued that the family's financial struggles had reached a breaking point, leading Darlie to commit the unthinkable act of slaying her own sons, Damon and Devin, as a desperate and horrifying solution to their problems. In their portrayal of Darlie, the prosecution characterized her as a self-centered and materialistic woman, one who had grown resentful of the burdens her children represented in the face of their financial troubles. They presented her as a woman who was, in their words, cold enough to slay her own 2 children. The crux of the prosecution's argument lay in the notion that Darlie Routier had a motive for the slayings. Both of her sons held life insurance policies, and the prosecution asserted that these policies would provide her with a financial lifeline, albeit a heart-wrenching cost. They contended that the policy payouts, while substantial, would only amount to $10,000, a sum that would not be sufficient to cover the family's mounting debts and funeral expenses. The defense, on the other hand, vigorously contested these allegations, presenting a starkly different narrative to the court. They argued that there was simply no plausible motive for Darlie to have committed such an unspeakable act. They emphasized that the case lacked any confession, a crucial element in establishing guilt, and contended that there were no credible witnesses to the alleged crime.
On death row for how long?
I came here early February 1997.
Crimes. It becomes more fantastic every time that you look at another piece of physical evidence here.
I think that I'm very blessed to have a lot of family.
Some reservation about there were 2 people in that house. So I was concerned about Darren.
She'd rather be dead than to live her life in prison for something she didn't do.
The trial also featured expert witnesses who offered conflicting testimonies on crucial elements of the case. San Antonio Chief Medical Examiner Vincent DeMaio testified that the wound to Darlie's neck was not consistent with self-inflicting injuries, contradicting the earlier assertions of her treating physicians. Another expert witness, Tom Bevel, provided testimony about the cast-off blood found on the back of Darlie's nightshirt. He suggested that the blood patterns indicated she had raised the knife over her head as she withdrew it from each boy to knife again, which seemed to challenge her account of a struggle with an intruder. Ultimately, only February 1st, 1997, the jury delivered its verdict. Darlie Routier was found guilty of the first-degree slaying of her son Damon. Just 3 days later, on February 4th, she was sentenced to capital punishment by lethal injection, a sentence that would place her on Ending Row in the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas. The trial of Darlie Routier remains one of the most closely examined and debated criminal cases in the annals of American legal history. It was a trial marked by starkly contrasting narratives, conflicting expert testimonies, and the intense emotions surrounding the loss of 2 young lives. The verdict and subsequent sentence would be the subject of ongoing scrutiny and appeals, as supporters of Darlie Routier's continue to assert her innocence while others remain convinced of her guilt.
It is a very, you're isolated. You're isolated from the world. You're cut off from your family, from life.
It was apparent that it was obvious that he was still alive. I'll never forget his face. He was looking up at
This made it a capital murder case because he was under 6.
Right.
He was only 5.
Difficult to see my wife being portrayed as someone she's not. And when the time comes out
in front of the house, I saw a man running out the front door. I got out of my car.
The way that the trial was played out, even though I was only...
Controversial silly string video. The controversial silly string video became a significant point of contention during Darlie Routier's trial, contributing to the already complex and emotionally charged case. The footage, which showed Darlie and her family celebrating at the gravesite of her sons, Damon and Devin, with silly string, had a profound impact on public perception and played a pivotal role in the prosecution's argument. The video captured a deeply polarizing moment in the aftermath of the tragedy. 8 days after the brutal slayings of her young sons, Darlie Routier and her family gathered at the boys' gravesite to commemorate what would have been Devin's 7th birthday, in a moment that many found deeply disturbing and incongruous with the expectations of grief. Darlie and those present were seen laughing, singing, and playfully spraying silly string over the graves. This footage, when presented during the trial, had a profound impact on the jurors and spectators alike. It was used by the prosecution to build the narrative of Darlie as a mother who displayed a shocking lack of grief over the loss of her children. In their eyes, her actions seemed inconsistent with the anguish and the sorrow one would expect from a mother who had just buried her sons. The celebratory nature of the gathering, marked by laughter and the use of silly string, clashed starkly with the somber and mournful image typically associated with such a heartbreaking occasion. Prosecutor Greg Davis seized upon this video as evidence of Darlie's true character, portraying her as a woman who has callous, self-centered, and detached from the immense grief that her actions had purportedly caused. Her argued that her behavior in the video demonstrated a lack of remorse and an inability to comprehend the gravity of her situation. However, it's important to note that Darlie's family and supporters offered a different perspective on the video. They contended that the footage had been selectively edited and that it did not accurately reflect the entirety of the gathering at the gravesite. According to them, the video failed to show an earlier, more solemn ceremony that had taken place to honor the memory of the two boys. Darlie herself addressed the video, explaining her actions by stating, "He wanted to be 7. I did the only thing I knew to do to honor him and give him all his wishes because he wasn't here anymore. But how do you know what you're going to do when you lose 2 children? How do you know how you're going to act?" Despite this explanation, the impact of the silly string video on public opinion on the perception of Darlie Routier cannot be understated.
But the shooting silly string was all that the jury saw.
They had balloons out and that sort of thing. There was a news crew out there and they filmed the party, which was labeled.
And I recall how shocked I was at the sight of that. And I wasn't the only one who was shocked.
She was chewing gum, she wasn't crying, and she looked like she was enjoying the attention, quite frankly.
I was really taken aback by her demeanor. I tell you, as a parent, I found it disgusting.
Party for Devin at his graveside.
We did have a party for him, which I've been...
They sprayed silly string, which took maybe 20 seconds. They sang happy birthday, and you hear Darlie.
And she didn't have the demeanor of a mother whose children had been brutally murdered a few days before.
It added another layer of complexity to an already emotionally charged trial, further dividing those who believed in her innocence from those who were convinced of her guilt. Ultimately, the video became a symbol of the prosecution's argument that Darlie Routier was not the grieving mother she appeared to be. It reinforced their narrative of a motiveless crime committed by a mother who, they argued, had grown resentful of her own children. However, for Darlie supporters, it served as a reminder of the limitations of perception and the complexities of human grief, leaving the case of Darlie Routier mired in controversy and debate. Post-trial appeals. The post-trial appeals in the Darlie Routier case constitute a significant chapter in the ongoing legal saga surrounding her conviction. Following her conviction and sentencing to capital punishment in 1997, her legal team mounted a series of appeals, alleging trial errors and seeking to introduce new DNA evidence that they believed could potentially exonerate her. These appeals have been a protracted and contentious aspect of the case, with varying outcomes. One of the primary contentions in these post-trial appeals was the assertion of trial errors. Darlie Routier's defense team argued that numerous irregularities had occurred during the trials, including issues related to the official trial transcript and the handling of evidence at the crime scene. These claims were aimed at challenging the fairness of the trial and the reliability of the verdict. While some of these appeals were fled and subsequently denied, others led to significant developments in the case. One of the most notable developments was the request for new DNA testing. DNA testing technology had advanced since the time of her original trial, and her legal team believed that re-examining the evidence using these advanced techniques could yield crucial information. In June 2008, a significant breakthrough occurred when Darlie Routier was granted the right to new DNA tests. This decision represented a significant development in her legal battle, as it offered the possibility of obtaining fresh forensic evidence that could either support her claims of innocence or reinforce the prosecution's case. These DNA tests were seen as a potential turning point in the case, and they raised hopes among her supporters that her conviction could be reconsidered. Furthermore, in January 2014, Chief Judge of the Western District, Fred Beery, granted the request from both the prosecution and the defense for further DNA tests. These tests were deemed vital to the defense and were focused on the key pieces of evidence, including a bloody fingerprint found in the house, a bloody sock, and her nightshirt.
Good.
The fingerprint does not match Darlie, Darren's, any of the police.
All of those patterns are consistent again with her using that knife repeatedly to stab the two boys.
From what I understand, that fingerprint was not identifiable.
And they're on the outside of the shirt, again consistent with that knife being repeatedly brought up and bound by the truth first and foremost. I'm also bound by rules of evidence and procedure. The Routier family's not.
Their expert tried to downplay it, because if you follow the chain of custody.
Heard claims about DNA, they don't back those claims up. About every 5 years, there's another new.
Look at her, jurors can look at her and decide, yes, she's a killer.
This ongoing pursuit of DNA testing indicated the continued commitment to uncovering the truth of what transpired on that tragic night in 1996. As of 2022, the results of these DNA tests were still pending. This protracted process reflects the complexity of forensic analysis and the meticulous nature of reviewing evidence in a high-stakes capital slaying case. The post-trial appeals and the pursuit of new DNA evidence underscored the enduring controversy and uncertainty surrounding the case of Darlie Routier. Her supporters contend that the introduction of advanced DNA testing could provide the evidence needed to exonerate her, while those who believe in her guilt remain skeptical of the potential outcomes. This case continues to be a source of intense debate and scrutiny, with the pending DNA results holding the potential to reshape its trajectory once more. Divorce and family impact. In 2011, the already tumultuous life of the Routier family took another significant turn when Darren Routier, Darlie's husband, filed for divorce. This decision came after years of enduring the emotional and legal challenges associated with Darlie's conviction and imprisonment. Despite the strain on their marriage, Darren continued to believe in his wife's innocence and maintained his unwavering support for her. The divorce was described as mutual and very difficult by Darren, highlighting the toll on Darlie's legal battle had taken on their relationship. The decision to divorce was, in part, an attempt to bring an end to the limbo they had been living in since her arrest and subsequent conviction. The family had been grappling with the weight of her incarceration, legal appeals, and the ongoing public scrutiny of their lives. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of the divorce was its impact on the couple's youngest son, Drake. Drake Routier, who had miraculously survived the horrifying events of June 6, 1996, when his brothers Damon and Devin were brutally slayed, continued to visit his mother, Darlie, in jail.
Very hard time because I couldn't be there for him like a mom should be there.
Or hug him?
No.
Or hold his hand?
No. I knew early that it was something different. I was feeling things with my heart. They love him, which that also told me a lot because I don't believe that Darren physically did this.
Of the state's witnesses, the defense team tried to win it with oratory, just talk the way out.
That a mother, as one of the legal team described it, dancing on the grave.
Positive with the investigation and testing that's happening right now, that I will.
His unwavering support and love for her were evident in his regular visits, even as he faced his own profound challenges. In a tragic twist of fate, young Drake was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia. This devastating illness further compounded the family's already substantial burdens. Drake's battle with cancer added a layer of pain and hardship to an already fraught situation, testing the strength and resilience of both him and his family. Despite the family's fractures, Drake's visit to his mother in jail served as a poignant reminder of the enduring bonds of love and family ties that persisted even in the face of overwhelming adversity. His faith in his mother's innocence was unwavering, mirroring the convictions of his father, Darren. The Routier family's journey has been marked by profound tragedy, heartache, and an unyielding commitment to challenging Darlie's conviction. It is a story of family torn apart by circumstances beyond their control, yet bound together by love and the enduring belief in Darlie's innocence. In the midst of personal trials, legal battles, and health challenges, their family ties and the quest for justice for Darlie Routier remain central to their lives. Current incarceration. As the most recent information available, Darlie Routier remains incarcerated at the Mountain View Unit Prison in Gatesville, Texas. Her life has been defined by the confines of the prison system as she continues to serve her sentence, which include an ending penalty conviction. Darlie Routier's case has garnered national and international attention due to its controversial nature and ongoing legal battles. Throughout her time in prison, she has consistently maintained her innocence in the slayings of her son, Damon and Devin, a claim that has been central to her legal defense and appeals. Her incarceration in a maximum security prison is a stark reminder of the gravity of her conviction and the legal process that led her to being sentenced to capital punishment by lethal injection. Her case remains the subject of intense debate, with supporters and advocates asserting her innocence and calling for a re-examination of the evidence that led to her conviction. Darlie Routier's continued assertion of her innocence, along with the ongoing pursuit of the new DNA testing and legal appeals, ensures that her case will remain a focal point of public interests and legal scrutiny for the foreseeable future.
Horrific scene.
Horrible. Stabbed me several times. I had bruising up to my armpits. And then had it been another 2 millimeters, that I would have bled to death. With
4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, no, but what? You must be mistaken. This isn't real. It just didn't. A police presence that was constantly there, and constantly.
The crime scene, from the point of view as to who might have committed this, the evidence didn't correspond. That those items were placed there after she had walked around the kitchen. They had been deposited there by cast-off from a knife.
Sources close to the investigation say that the cut across
to the nurses, to her friends, they conflicted with her stories at trial.
Anytime you can expose a defendant.
I'm crazy and then snap back and you're normal. That's not even plausible.
The complex and controversial nature of her conviction has made it one of the most discussed and debated cases in the realm of criminal justice in the United States. Public perception and controversy. The Darlie Routier case stands as a stark example of a polarizing nature of high-profile criminal trials and their enduring impact on public perception. Since the tragic events of June 6, 1996 in Rowlett, Texas, the case has captured the imagination of the public and has remained a subject of intense scrutiny and debate. One of the most striking aspects of the case is a stark division of public opinion regarding Darlie Routier's guilt or innocence. The deeply contentious nature of the case has given rise to fervent advocates on both sides, each passionately defending their viewpoint. On one hand, there are those who firmly believe in Darlie Routier's innocence. They point to what they perceive as flaws and inconsistencies in the prosecution's case, as well as the potential mishandling of the evidence. They argue that Darlie's behavior following the slayings, such as her 911 and the silly string video, can be interpreted in ways that support her claims of innocence. These supporters argue that there is reasonable doubt about her guilt and that the case deserves a fresh and impartial review. On the other hand, there are those who are convinced of Darlie Routier's guilt.
You walk out of this here, what will you do first?
Well, I always had this pick, but I just, yes, I have not got to hold my son in 16 years through this. And just being able to grieve, to have, because I've had to put that somewhere else so I can be strong to fight and do what I need to.
They argue that the evidence presented during the trial, including forensic analysis and the alleged staging of the crime scene, strongly supports the prosecution's case. They believe that Darlie's motive, financial difficulties, and the presence of life insurance policies of her sons provide a compelling rationale for her alleged actions. For these individuals, the verdict and subsequent appeals have validated their belief in her culpability. The case's notoriety has extended beyond courtroom proceedings and legal arguments. It has been a subject of numerous books, documentaries, and television programs, further fueling public interests and discussion. These media portrayals have provided different perspectives on the case, shaping the perceptions of those who follow it closely. In this environment of conflicting narratives and impassioned arguments, the Darlie Routier case remains a vivid illustration of the complexities and ambiguities that can rise in criminal investigations and trials. It serves as a reminder that the pursuit of justice is multifaceted, with divergent opinions and interpretations shaping the course of legal proceedings and public perception. As the case continues to be discussed and debated, it underscores the enduring importance of thorough and unbiased examinations of evidence, the role of forensic science, and the need for a fair and just legal system. Whether one believes in Darlie Routier's guilt or innocence, the case serves as a potent reminder of the challenges and responsibilities that come with making determinations of guilt in cases of such profound tragedy and consequence.
Intruder in the house up until we actually searched the house and didn't find one. I thought he
gone to sleep. The boys were sleeping downstairs with me. And in the arm, I was stabbed.
Do we still see a scar?
Yeah.
Can you lift it higher?
Yeah.
What we found when we looked at the records was that these people were in such financial style that if you and I had looked from the outside, we said these people are doing great. But on the inside, they...
Anything?
I would not watch her execution. I would not watch them murder.
Puts the knife back in and then picks up another knife out of her kitchen and commits these horrible crimes.
Unresolved questions. The Darlie Routier case is riddled with unresolved questions and lingering doubts that have fueled ongoing discussions and legal challenges. Among the many unanswered questions are two key issues that have cast a shadow of uncertainty over the case. The bloody sock. One of the most perplexing aspects of the case is the origin of the bloody sock found outside the Routier home. The discovery of a bloody sock, presumably belonging to the supposed intruder, raised significant questions about the timeline and sequence of events on the night of the slayings. How did the sock end up in the alleyway behind the house? And what is the significance of the blood found on it? The presence of the sock has been cited by Darlie supporters as evidence that challenges the prosecution's narrative of the crime and suggests the possible involvement of an unidentified intruder. However, skeptics argue that the sock's presence may be explained by alternative theories.
There's one strange, mysterious item, a sock, bloody, found about that.
Well, we know that the sock contained the blood of the two boys. We know that from
Yes.
analysis. To a storm drain, and it was laying out exposed as though whoever left it there.
Under the scene, they were then investigating evidence, quote, evidence to prove that she was guilty.
Validity of forensic evidence. Another major point of contention in the case revolves around the validity of the forensic evidence presented during the trial. This includes blood spatter analysis, the nature of the wounds, and the analysis of the slaying weapon, a knife from the Rudier kitchen. Critics have raised questions about the methods and interpretations of forensic evidence, suggested that it may have been misinterpreted or mishandled. Additionally, advances in forensic science and DNA testing since the time of the trial have prompted calls for a re-evaluation of the evidence using more modern techniques.
Behind the headlines lies the chilling tale of Krista Gale Pike, the youngest girl on the finality row, her haunting past, and the tears shed before her fateful ending. Today, we unravel this haunting mystery. Krista Pike's inauspicious beginnings. Krista Gale Pike, born on March 10, 1976, stands as a chilling figure in American criminal history as she became the youngest woman to be sentenced to demise in the United States during the post-Furman period. Her life journey paints a harrowing portrait of troubled youth, lost innocence, and a descent into darkness. From an early age, Pike faced a tumultuous upbringing. Born in West Virginia, she was abandoned by her mother, a self-professed party girl, more interested in her vices than in caring for her daughter. Pike's father wanted no part in raising her, leaving her grandmother to step in and become her primary caretaker. However, tragedy struck when Pike was only 12 years old. Her grandmother passed away, leaving her world shattered. With no stable support system, Pike was forced to return to her neglectful mother. It was during this time that Pike's life took a troubling turn as her mother introduced her to marijuana, exposing her to substances at a young age. As Pike grew older, her violent tendencies began to surface. She dropped out of high school and found herself in trouble with the law, facing a shoplifting charge that led to a brief stint in juvenile detention. Seeking a fresh start and some guidance, she enrolled in the Job Corps program, which aimed to provide vocational training and career skills to low-income youth. Pike attended the Job Corps Center in Knoxville, Tennessee, hoping to build a better future for herself. However, instead of focusing on her studies and personal growth, Pike became consumed by her infatuation with Tedderil Shipp, a young man a year her junior. Their relationship took a sinister turn as they delve into the realms of the occult and devil worship. Together, they immersed themselves in a world of darkness, exploring macabre rituals and twisted ideologies. It was within this toxic dynamic that Pike's path crossed with that of her classmate, Colleen Slemmer. At the age of 18, Pike committed an unspeakable act of brutality that would forever stain her name. Motivated by jealousy and fueled by her sinister obsessions, she orchestrated the torture slaying of Slemmer. The details of the crime are haunting and gruesome, a chilling testament to the depths of Pike's darkness. The slaying of Colleen Slemmer. The chilling case of the Knoxville Job Corps slaying unveils a tale of darkness, obsession, and a horrifying slaying. Krista Pike and Tedderil Shipp, both with troubled backgrounds, found themselves entangled in a twisted love affair that led to a sinister plot. Raised by a single mother and involved with gangs, Shipp's path took a detour when he joined the Knoxville Job Corps at his mother's urging. Enrolled in the culinary arts program, he crossed paths with Pike and their relationship developed rapidly. Both Pike and Shipp harbored a fascination with Satanism and the occult, which attracted like-minded individuals, including Shadola Peterson at the Job Corps. Enter Colleen Slimmer, a vibrant young woman from Jacksonville, Florida, who arrived at the Knoxville Job Corps to pursue computer technology studies. In a matter of months, tensions arose between Slimmer and Pike. Pike accused Slimmer of pursuing Shipp and attempting to steal him away, though Slimmer and her friends vehemently denied any romantic interest. Distorted by her obsession, Pike managed to convince Shipp and Peterson that Slimmer needed to be sacrificed in the name of Satan. Krista Pike's descent into darkness took a sinister turn when jealousy consumed her. Enraged by her unfounded belief that her classmate, 19-year-old university student Colleen Slimmer, was attempting to steal her boyfriend, Pike hatched a plan with her friend Shadola Peterson, 18 years old, to lure Slimmer to an abandoned steam plant near the University of Tennessee campus. On January 12, 1995, Pike, along with Shipp, Peterson, and Slimmer, signed out of their dormitory, pretending to make peace by offering Slimmer some marijuana. They proceeded to the woods, arriving at the isolated location where their true intentions unfolded. Slimmer fell victim to a vicious attack orchestrated by Pike and Shipp, with Peterson serving as a lookout. Over the next harrowing 30 minutes, Slimmer endured taunting, beatings, and slashing. Shockingly, a pentagram was carved into her chest, symbolizing the depth of depravity at play. Ultimately, Pike dealt a fatal blow, smashing Slimmer's skull with a large chunk of asphalt. As a macabre memento, Pike kept a piece of Slimmer's skull. The repercussions of this gruesome crime were far-reaching, shattering the lives of those involved and leaving a community in shock. The missing fragment of Slimmer's skull remains a haunting reminder of the darkness that consumed Pike. Unfathomably, Pike brazenly showcased the gruesome souvenir at school, boasting of her heinous act. Within a mere 36 hours, the authorities arrested Pike, Shipp, and Peterson. The evidence against them was damning, as the logbook revealed that the four had departed together, but only 3 returned. Detectives discovered the fragment of skull in Pike's jacket pocket, leaving little doubt about her involvement. The investigation delved further into the dark abyss when a copy of the Satanic Bible was found in Shipp's room. In the aftermath of her arrest, Pike confessed to the police, acknowledging her role in the torture and slaying of Slimmer. However, she attempted to downplay the severity of their intentions, claiming they had merely intended to scare Slimmer, but the situation spiraled out of control. This feeble attempt to mitigate her actions did little to overshadow the brutality and depravity of the crime. The chilling details of this crime sent shock waves through the community, exposing the depths of human cruelty and the consequences of unchecked malevolence. Krista Pike's involvement in this heinous act serves as a disturbing reminder of the potential for darkness that exists within the human psyche. The tragic loss of Colleen Slimmer's life highlights the devastating impact of jealousy and the alarming lengths to which some individuals will go to satisfy their warped desires. Trial and verdict. During Krista Pike's trial, the prosecution built a strong case against her, supporting by compelling evidence and Pike's own confession. Pike's friends and co-conspirators remained silent about the crime, but her bragging about it to fellow Job Corps attendees became her downfall. Pike's confession revealed disturbing details about the slaying of Colleen Slimmer. She claimed that her motive was rooted in jealousy, believing that Slimmer was trying to steal her boyfriend, Tedderell Shipp. Pike convinced Shipp and Shadola Peterson that Slimmer needed to be sacrificed in the name of Satan. On January 11, 1995, Pike, Shipp, and Peterson lured Slimmer to the woods under the pretense of sharing marijuana. Once there, Pike and Shipp viciously attacked her while Peterson served as a lookout. Slimmer endured approximately 30 minutes of torment, during which she was taunted, beaten, and slashed. Pike even carved a pentagram into her chest. The brutality escalated as Slimmer begged for her life, with Pike responding by kicking her in the face and slashing her throat. Pike ultimately bludgeoned Slimmer to demise with a large piece of asphalt, keeping a fragment of her skull as a macabre souvenir. Although Pike's friends did not report the crime, her indiscretion in showing off the stolen skull fragment to others eventually led the police to her. They interviewed Pike on January 15, 1995, and she voluntarily waived her Miranda rights and confessed to the crime. While initially claiming that she wanted Slimmer to leave her alone, the level of violence and sadism displayed during the slaying suggested a different motive. Pike's defense team attempted to argue that her actions were a result of diminished mental capacity. They called upon experts to testify on her behalf. Dr. Eric Engem acknowledged Pike's severe borderline personality disorder, cannabis dependence, and depression, but stated that she did not exhibit any signs of brain damage or insanity. Another expert, Dr. William Burnett, who specialized in Satanism, testified that Pike's crime contained some satanic elements but was more indicative of adolescent experimentation and collective aggression rather than a true satanic sacrifice. In an effort to humanize Pike and establish mitigating factors, her defense presented family members who testified about her challenging upbringing. However, the testimony of Dr. Deanna McCoy, intended to discuss Pike's diminished capacity, was ultimately excluded from the trial. The prosecution's case relied heavily on Pike's confession and the evidence collected. Pike was charged with first-degree slaying and conspiracy to commit slaying. After only a few hours of deliberation, on March 22, 1996, the jury found Pike guilty on both counts. The severity of the crimes led to a harsh sentence for Pike. On March 30, she was sentenced to demise by electrocution for the slaying charge, in addition to 25 years in prison for the conspiracy charge. Tedderell Shipp received a life sentence with the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years. Shadola Peterson, who had turned informant, pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact and received probation. The trial of Krista Pike shed light on the gruesome details of the crime and the complex psychological factors at play. Despite the defense's attempts to present mitigating factors, the overwhelming evidence and testimony presented in court led to Pike's conviction and the imposition of severe punishments for her and her accomplices. The trial ensured that they would face the consequences of their brutal and heinous actions. Krista Pike's legal odyssey. Following the guilty verdict, Krista Pike's legal journey took a series of unexpected twists and turns, keeping the public and legal experts on the edge of their seats. Pike's actions seemed to defy the conventional norms of the appeals process, making her case all the more intriguing. In a surprising move, Pike initially launched an appeal of her conviction in the Tennessee state courts. However, she later canceled the appeal, only to reverse her decision and relaunch it again. The roller coaster of legal maneuvers left her lawyers bewildered as they advised against dropping the appeal. Pike, however, made an extraordinary request. She sought to be executed via electrocution, defying the conventional desire for an appeal process. To everyone's astonishment, criminal court judge Mary Beth Lebowitz granted Pike's request and set an ending date for August 19, 2002. The anticipation and tension surrounding Pike's case reached its peak. But just when it seemed like Pike had sealed her fate, she changed her mind once again. On July 8, 2002, defense lawyers filed a motion to continue the appeal process, attempting to backtrack on Pike's request for ending. However, the motion was denied, leaving Pike's fate hanging in the balance. A glimmer of hope emerged when on August 2, 2002, a three-judge state appeals court panel ruled in favor of continuing the proceedings, sparing Pike from imminent ending. The unexpected turn of events breathed new life into her case, but it also added another layer of uncertainty and complexity. The legal battle continued, with Pike's lawyers exploring every possible avenue to challenge her sentence. In December 2008, Pike's request for a new trial was ultimately denied, and she was sent back to Ending Row. It seemed that Pike had exhausted all her appeals within the framework of Tennessee's criminal justice system, leaving her faith hanging by a thread. However, Pike's tenacious legal team wasn't ready to give up. In May 2014, they took her case to the federal court system, seeking a commutation of her sentence from demise to life in prison. The grounds for the appeal were compelling: ineffective assistance of counsel, Pike's mental illness, and the assertion that capital punishment, as administered in Tennessee, was unconstitutional. The stakes were high, as Pike's fate was once again in the hands of the courts. U.S. District Judge Harry S. Mattis Jr. issued a monumental 61-page ruling on March 11, 2016, rejecting all the grounds presented by Pike's lawyers and denying the requested commutation. The decision dealt a significant blow to Pike's hopes for a different outcome. However, her legal team persisted, and the case made its way to the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. After a long and suspenseful wait, the three-judge panel of the Sixth Circuit unanimously upheld the lower court ruling on August 22, 2019. Pike's appeal was denied once again, leaving her with limited options and the looming specter of her demise sentence. The twists and turns of Krista Pike's legal battle captivated the public, as each decision added layers of complexity and uncertainty. The unexpected nature of Pike's actions and the resilience of her legal team kept the world watching, waiting to see what would unfold next in this extraordinary case. Lurking darkness, prison attack. Within the cold and oppressive confines of the prison, tension simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to erupt into a flurry of violence. It was on that fateful August 24, 2001, that Krista Pike, a name synonymous with darkness, and alleged accomplice Natasha Cornett embarked on a harrowing journey that would forever stain their records. Driven by an insidious motive, Pike and Cornett orchestrated a calculated attack on fellow inmate Patricia Jones. Armed with nothing but a shoestring, Pike lunged at her unsuspecting victim, tightening the makeshift garrote around Jones's throat with a chilling determination. The confines of the prison walls bore witness to a desperate struggle for survival as Jones fought for each precious breath. It was a battle on the brink of life and demise.
Acceptable, and I realize that, but I don't deserve to die for the action. I thought that if I went in there and told him that I did every single thing that happened up there, that Daryl did not have somebody chain me up when I walk out a door or tell me when I can use the bathroom or take full responsibility for this anymore, and I won't, because if I'm gonna die in here, I'm gonna die for my truth.
As the darkness threatened to consume her, Jones clung to hope, praying for salvation from the hands of her assailants. Miraculously, she managed to escape the clutches of Pike's lifeless grip, narrowly avoiding the grip of demise. But the scars left behind, both physical and emotional, would forever serve as a haunting reminder of the brutality she endured. The aftermath of the heinous act led to a grueling legal battle. On August 12, 2004, Pike was dealt a damning blow as she was convicted of attempted first-degree slaying. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence as the weight of her crimes echoed through the proceedings. The jurors, tasked with unraveling the twisted web of deceit and violence, unanimously rendered their verdict, condemning Pike for her chilling attempt on Jones's life. Yet, amidst the shadowy landscape of this chilling event, the role of Natasha Cornett remained obscured. While suspicions loomed over Cornett's alleged assistance in the attack, the Tennessee Department of Corrections faced an agonizing dilemma. Their investigators scoured the evidence, searching for the elusive threads that could definitely tie Cornett to the heinous crime. Alas, their efforts proved futile, leaving lingering doubts and unanswered questions surrounding Cornett's involvement. The attempted slaying conviction reverberated through the prison walls, sending shockwaves of fear and uncertainty among the inmates. It served as a stark reminder of the depths humanity can sink to when consumed by darkness and driven by sinister intentions. For Pike, the conviction marked another haunting chapter in her troubled journey, while for Jones, it represented both a triumph of survival and a painful reminder of the demons that lurk in the depths of human souls. The foiled prison break. In the depths of March 2012, a chilling revelation shook the confines of Krista Pike's imprisonment. An intricate and audacious plan for a prison break had been set into motion. As the layers of this gripping saga unraveled, a complex web of relationships, desperation, and the relentless pursuit of freedom emerged, painting a vivid picture of the human spirit pushed to its limits. The genesis of this daring plot can be traced back to a most unlikely connection. Donald Cohut, a personal trainer hailing from the distant shores of Flemington, New Jersey, found himself entangled in an inexplicable bond with Pike. What began as a modest exchange of letters between Pike and Cohut in the early months of 2011 soon evolved into a series of face-to-face meetings. Determined to stand by Pike's side, Cohut embarked on a grueling pilgrimage, traveling over 1,800 miles round trip to visit Pike in the confines of her Nashville, Tennessee prison. These visits became a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in the midst of their bleak surroundings. As their relationship deepened, trust blossomed, and Cohut unveiled a plan that would test the limits of their resolve. Cohut, fueled by an unwavering determination, presented Pike with a daring scheme for escape. The specifics of this intricate plan remained shrouded in secrecy, veiled by the Tennessee Department of Corrections due to security concerns. However, an unsealed indictment hinted at the audacious plan involving the tracing and replication of a prison key, an essential piece in their quest for freedom. Yet, destiny had other designs in store. In the early months of 2012, whispers of an impending escape plot reached the ears of vigilant prison personnel. The alarm was sounded, prompting a swift and coordinated response from the Tennessee Department of Corrections, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the New Jersey State Police. Together, they launched a joint investigation aimed at dismantling the conspiracy before it could materialize into a tangible threat. The clock was ticking. The authorities worked tirelessly to dismantle the intricate web that had been spun within the prison's walls. Their efforts proved fruitful as the plan was swiftly intercepted and brought to a grinding halt. Thankfully, the jailbreak, which had loomed ominously on the horizon, was prevented from becoming a chilling reality. The danger that lurked in the shadows of freedom was extinguished, and the public breathed a collective sigh of relief. March 2012 marked a turning point in the lives of the key players involved in this gripping tale. Donald Cohat found himself confronted with the harsh realities of justice, facing charges of bribery and conspiracy to commit escape. His dreams of liberation were shattered as the gavel of the court pronounced a sentence that would confine him to the walls of the Tennessee State Northeast Correctional Complex for a period of 7 years. Meanwhile, the role of Justin Heflin, the corrections officer entangled in the conspirational dance, faced its own reckoning. Heflin, lured by promises of material gain and entranced by the allure of freedom, had chosen a treacherous path. In the aftermath of the foiled prison break, Heflin was arrested and charged with bribery, official misconduct, and conspiracy to commit escape. While he managed to avoid a prison sentence through his cooperation with the authorities, the loss of his position within the Tennessee Department of Corrections served as a haunting reminder of the consequences of his ill-fated choices. The story of the attempted prison break captivated the public's imagination, sparkling endless debates and fueling speculations about the untold possibilities that could have unfolded and had their audacious plan succeeded. The tale stood as a testament to the indomitable human spirit, a testament to the lengths individuals will go to seize their chance at freedom regardless of the consequences. In the annals of criminal history, the foiled prison break led by Krista Pike, Donald Cohat, and aided by the ill-fated alliance with Justin Heflin etched a lasting impression. The battle for Krista Pike's life. In the hallowed halls of justice, where the scales of punishment are meticulously balanced, Krista Gale Pike's fate hangs in the balance. As her legal team makes one final attempt to avert the unthinkable, they face an uphill battle against the prevailing tides of precedent and the weight of previous court rulings. In 2011, the stage was set for a pivotal showdown as Pike's defense lawyers made a compelling argument, contending that young offenders plagued by immaturity, mental illness, and brain damage should be exempt from the ending penalty. They implored the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals to recognize the unique vulnerabilities of 18-year-olds and grant them clemency. However, their plea fell on deaf ears as the court staunchly maintained that juries already had the discretion to consider a slayer's youth and mental health when determining the imposition of the ultimate punishment. Undeterred, Pike's lawyers continued their valiant fight, now shifting their focus to the alleged deficiencies in her trial. They asserted that crucial factors of youth and mental health were not adequately presented to the jury, thereby hindering their ability to make an informed decision. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, however, firmly rejected this argument in 2019, emphasizing that the jury had been privy to a comprehensive narrative, one that painted a vivid picture of Pike's tumultuous childhood and upbringing, attempting to explain the transformation of a troubled soul into a perpetrator of heinous violence. Despite the resounding rejection of Pike's appeal, hope flickered within the hearts of her legal team. They turned their gaze towards the Tennessee Supreme Court, desperately seeking a recommendation for clemency from Governor Bill Lee. The plea was clear: commute Pike's sentence to life with or without a possibility of parole.
The only woman on Tennessee's death row is asking for commutation of her sentence. We here at WA.
Living with taxpayers' money, paying for her to live in jail to get an education.
It is therefore ordered that Daryl Shipp and Shadala Peterson were charged in the 1995 death.
To bolster their case, they requested additional time for a psychologist to evaluate Pike's current mental state, delving into the depths of her being, as well as the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to conclude their investigation into potential violations of her human rights. All eyes now turn to Governor Lee, a figure whose decision holds the power to alter the course of Pike's life. A delicate balance rests in his hands as he weighs the merits of clemency against the gravity of Pike's crimes. It is worth noting that since his inauguration in 2019, Governor Lee has not granted clemency to any Demise Row inmate, thus casting a shadow of uncertainty over Pike's fate. The Endanger's gavel has fallen 4 times since then, claiming the lives of men who face their own demons on Ending Row, including the captivating tale of Nicholas Sutton, a Morristown man who found redemption amidst the shadows. Yet, Pike's journey within the confines of prison has been marred by further legal entanglements. In 2004, she was convicted of attempted slaying, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks within her soul. This additional offense only adds to the complexity of her case, further fueling the debate surrounding her potential ending. Pike's legal team, ever vigilant in their pursuit of justice, passionately argues that her ending would mark a historic moment, the first time Tennessee has executed a woman in over 2 centuries. Moreover, they emphasize that she would also be the first person in what is deemed the modern era to be put to demise for a crime committed during her teenage years. These striking facts cast a somber light on the potential irreversible outcome that looms menacingly before us. In this climactic battle for life and redemption, the final chapter of Pike's tumultuous journey has yet to be written. The echoes of her plea resonate through the chambers of justice, echoing the enduring question, will mercy prevail, granting her a chance at redemption? Or will the wheels of justice turn inexorably, etching her name in the annals of Tennessee's dark history? The world watches with bated breath, awaiting the defining moment that will shape the destiny of Krista Gale Pike. Emotional turmoil. The emotional turmoil surrounding Krista Gale Pike's tears before her scheduled ending is a powerful and complex aspect of the broader narrative surrounding her case. Facing imminent demise can elicit a range of emotions, not just for the condemned individual, but also for their loved ones, the public, and even those involved in carrying out the ending. For Krista Gale Pike herself, the reality of impending ending must be an overwhelming and harrowing experience. Knowing that one's life is about to come to an end, especially through such a violent and irreversible means, can lead to profound emotional distress. Pike may be grappling with feelings of fear, regret, sadness, and desperation as she faces the finality of her situation. Tears could be a manifestation of her intense emotional struggle, a response to the gravity of the situation and the fear of the unknown beyond demise. At the same time, Pike's tears may also be a reflection of her remorse and the weight of the crime she committed. Though she has been convicted and sentenced for her actions, the imminent ending may serve as a stark reminder of the life she took and the pain she caused to the victim's family and her own loved ones.
Krista, and Krista and Daryl knocked her down and drug her
through absolute hell. And I can't imagine anybody going through that. And I can't imagine
the weight of guilt and the acknowledgement of the irreversible nature of her crime would contribute to her emotional turmoil. For those witnessing Pike's tears, including her attorneys, prison staff, and other individuals involved in the ending process, the emotional impact can be equally significant. While some may view her tears as a sign of remorse and vulnerability, others might see them as manipulative or insincere attempts to garner sympathy. These conflicting perceptions further add to the complexity of emotions surrounding the situation. Moreover, the public's response to Pike's tears can be multifaceted. Some may empathize with her and question the justice of capital punishment, while others might view her emotions as insufficient justification for her actions and sentence. The emotional turmoil of being condemned person cry before the ending can reignite debates about the humanity of the ending penalty and whether it serves as a just response to heinous crimes. Pike's case could also evoke sympathy and empathy from some people, particularly if they believe that she was a victim of her circumstances, such as troubled upbringing or mental health issues. On the other hand, there may be others who feel little compassion, believing that her crimes were too horrific to warrant any leniency. In conclusion, the emotional turmoil surrounding Krista Gale Pike's tears before her ending is a complex and emotionally charged aspect of her case. It provides a glimpse into the profound psychological impact of facing demise and the diverse range of responses and emotions elicited in both the condemned and the public. It also serves as a reminder of the deeply contentious nature of capital punishment, raising questions about its moral implications and the potential for justice and compassion in the face of such a grave outcome. A desperate plea for mercy is an emotional appeal made by Krista Gale Pike's lawyers as they call for clemency in her case. They argue for an alternative to capital punishment, urging authorities to spare Pike's life. They emphasize factors such as Pike's troubled background, personal growth and rehabilitation, mental health concerns, flaws in the trial proceedings, and broader issues related to the expiry penalty. Pike's lawyers present evidence of a difficult upbringing, hoping to elicit sympathy and understanding. They highlight her educational pursuits, rehabilitation efforts, and positive contributions to the prison community, demonstrating her potential for change. They argue that continued incarceration is a just and humane alternative to putting down. The plea also focuses on Pike's mental health, citing psychiatric evaluations and a history of mental illness to raise questions about her capacity for remorse and reduced culpability. In addition, Pike's lawyers point out flaws in the trial, such as inadequate legal representation or procedural errors. They highlight broader concerns surrounding the ending penalty, including evolving societal attitudes, wrongful convictions, and moral considerations. The outcome of the plea rests in the hands of decision makers who must weigh these arguments against the severity of Pike's crimes and the demands of justice. It is a final attempt to persuade authorities to show mercy and grant Pike clemency, sparing her from the ultimate punishment of slaying. Historical significance. The historical significance of Krista Gale Pike's ending lies in its potential impact on the broader discourse surrounding the ending penalty. Pike's case raises important questions and sparks debates regarding the fairness, effectiveness, and ethical implications of capital punishment, particularly when applied to individuals who committed crimes as juveniles. As the youngest girl on ending row, Pike's ending would mark a significant event in the history of capital punishment. It would serve as a reminder of the rare instances where women have faced the ultimate punishment and highlight the long-standing gender disparities in ending penalty cases. Furthermore, Pike's case stands out due to her age at the time of the crime, bringing attention to the contentious issue of sentencing juveniles to demise. The ending of Pike, who was a teenager when she committed the crime, forces society to confront the complex question of whether it is justifiable to hold individuals accountable for their actions committed during their formative years. This aspect of Pike's case amplifies the ongoing discussion surrounding the culpability and potential for rehabilitation of juvenile offenders. Moreover, the debate over Pike's ending extends to the broader conversation about the efficacy and fairness of the ending penalty itself. It invites reflection on the purposes of punishment, the potential for deterrence, and the role of retribution in the criminal justice system. The case brings to light concerns about the potential arbitrariness and racial disparities in capital punishment, and raises questions about the evolving standards of decency within society. Pike's ending, if carried out, could further fuel discussions about the humanity of the ending penalty and the need for alternative forms of punishment that prioritize rehabilitation and the potential for positive change. It may prompt calls for policy reforms, including reconsideration how the justice system handles cases involving juvenile offenders and individuals with a history of mental health issues. Ultimately, the historical significance of Pike's ending lies in its potential to shape public opinion, challenge existing legal frameworks, and influence the ongoing discourse on the ending penalty. It serves as a catalyst for examining the complexities and moral dilemmas associated with capital punishment, leaving a lasting impact on the trajectory of the broader debate. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.